Now is Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. He is a member of the January 6th committee. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. You are a freshly censured congressman. How does that feel this morning?
What is this, like my baker's dozen of censures now from between local parties and now the national? It feels great. Actually, it makes me pretty sad because I think it says a lot for the party and it says a lot to call January 6th legitimate political discourse. But, it's actually just made me even double down on my intensity to get to the bottom of this, because that's really frightening when, in theory, half of the country's party is focused on complete denial of truth.
You say it says a lot about the party. What does it say?
Well, I think it says that they are completely unmoored from truth. I think it shows that they have pledged allegiance to one man over any kind of principle, and they can call that like loyalty. They call that conservatism. Conservatism is no longer about what you actually believe. It's about how intensely you're loyal to Donald Trump. A rhino now, a Republican in name only, as somebody who maybe actually holds to real conservatism and not to Donald Trump. I think it shows that this party is not committed to the rule of law, despite what they say, and it's not committed to democratic principles, small d, to get, to one vote, one, counts, and whoever gets the most votes wins. It's pretty frightening. And to see, the chair of the RNC, Ronna McDaniel, stand up and try to now recover and say, oh, we only meant legitimate political discourse with nonviolence. Well, that's insane, because we would not be having a January 6th committee that I'm being condemned for if it was all nonviolent. I mean, nobody denies your First Amendment right to have an opinion. We do deny your ability to break, destroy, and try to overthrow an election.
Guys like Marco Rubio, Senator Rubio from Florida, he calls the committee a partisan scam. What else did he say? He said, you're trying to embarrass and smear and harass as many Republicans as you can get your hands on the committee. What do you say to that?
Look, I don't know what's happened to Marco. I mean, when he ran in 2016, I was a Jeb supporter and went to Marco after Jeb, because I look and I go, Marco was talking about a strong America. He was kind of represented this next generation, potentially Republicans, and he's gone all in now on this kind of big lie, or sometimes he'll walk the line a little bit. Look, the January 6th committee, let's keep in mind how we got here. Kevin McCarthy asked John Katko to negotiate a nonpartisan, fair commission. He did that. And then all of a sudden, McCarthy turned against it. It was rejected. It passed the House, rejected in the Senate. And then he put forward members to sit on this committee, of which some, had deep involvement in January 6th. One or two of those members were rejected, and Kevin pulled all his members out instead of naming two others. And so that's how we got to this position. And in that process, we have Republicans and Democrats now getting to fair answers. We're not out to get anybody. We're not out to embarrass anybody. We're out to get to the truth. If the truth embarrasses somebody, I can't help that. But our job is to give a full accountability to the American people.
CNN reported on Friday that Congressman Jim Jordan, among the records you now have, are that he had a 10-minute phone conversation with Donald Trump the morning of January 6th. What does that tell you?
So I won't comment directly on that. I'll wait for the committee to put out any details that do or don't exist. But I think what, something like that in theory would show, and particularly what we're interested in is what was the president doing that day and leading up to that day. What did the president think January 6th was? What was he doing during it? I think the question is, if this was a spontaneous act of violence of people that took the president literally, and he was only speaking metaphorically, as I think he recently said, hang Mike Pence was just metaphoric and not real, that's one thing. But if in fact the president knew that there was a potential for violence, that actually is something the DOJ might be interested in, because it would show that he would be maybe have some criminal culpability at that moment. I don't have the answer to that. I'm not sitting here saying we know that, but I think those are some kind of things we're interested in. The bottom line on this, John, is, I just had a kid 3 weeks ago. When he's 5 or 10 and learning about history, I want to make sure that he gets a full accounting of what happened on January 6th. And I want to make sure that every Republican member of Congress, when their kids and grandkids are in school, they're going to look and be like, hey, mom or dad or grandma and grandpa, how did you vote on January 6th? That's going to be something I think in 5 or 10 years is going to be hard to explain if you're not on the side of truth.
Well, first of all, congratulations. Second of all, what will you tell Christian when he's old enough. What will you tell Christian about Donald Trump?
I'm going to tell him he was the worst president the United States of America ever had. He was a liar. He was a charlatan. And he was a man with a more fragile ego than anybody I've ever met, which the irony of it is he walks around like the tough guy, but he's the one that gets more offended and wounded and sad than anybody I know. I'm also going to tell him that it was the moment that I hope America hit the bottom of, its slide towards authoritarianism and the moment we woke up. I hope he's proud of what I've done. I'm confident he will be because, short of this thing really going off the rails, this thing being our country in this experiment, I think we're going to look back and say, wow, that was a moment we might have flown too close to the sun, and we can never do that again. That's my hope and prayer, because if not, we're in real trouble.
You say you hope those are your words, hit bottom. The Republicans could gain control of the House of Representatives. Kevin McCarthy could be Speaker. What will he be like as Speaker?
Well, I'll tell you what he will. He'll have a high cell phone bill because he'll be calling Marjorie Taylor Greene and, people like that to ask them what their opinion is and what he can and can't do. He will have no leadership ability because he is basically begging the people that just 2 years ago he said were crazy. He's begging them for the ability to lead. So I think it's going to be a miserable experience for him if he actually wins. I'm not convinced he will be Speaker. But if he is Speaker, I think it will end up being one of the most miserable things he's ever been through. So, yeah, he'll have the title. But if he thinks there's a point at which he can kind of stand up and take back power from folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene and the crazy, I just don't see it's going to happen. And the American people will react by throwing them out of power.
So you issued a tweet about Josh Hawley, a senator from Missouri, and I want to ask you a couple things about it. I think you were responding to Hawley talking about Ukraine and the fact that the United States should withdraw any guarantees about Ukraine being able to join NATO long term. And you wrote, I hate to be so personal, but Hawley is one of the worst human beings and a self-aggrandizing con artist. When Trump goes down, I certainly hope this evil will be laid in the open for all us to see and be ashamed of. I actually want to break this into parts if I can and take the second part first. When you say when Trump goes down, what do you mean by that?
Well, that's not based on anything on the committee, although I'm convinced that when the full story is out and history kind of moves on, Donald Trump is going to be just seen as a really a sad character in history. And I'm still confident that all this information is going to be out there for the American people. So I have a strong sense of confidence that all the lies, all the conspiracies, and all that garbage will be fully exposed for the American people to detest. And so I think Trump is going down. I don't know what form that's going to take, but I certainly don't think he's going to be the king of much more than Mar-a-Lago.
And you say that. Now, just to be clear, this is a somewhat informed statement. You've seen things that we haven't seen, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, look, what we know even anecdotally, guys gleefully watching television while the Capitol's being ransacked, at least that's kind of what we've heard second and third hand. I mean, that's no good president of the United States. And that's a man that, really doesn't have the best interests of the U.S. at heart. And I'll say, too, with Josh Hawley, let's keep in mind, and I try not to get so personal, but that was a moment in which he was parroting Tucker Carlson's talking points on Ukraine because he wants to get in the good graces of Tucker Carlson, Josh Hawley. And keep in mind, the whole reason January 6th went down, there was no senator that was going to, even Ted Cruz, for goodness sakes, no senator was going to object to these states on January 6th until Josh Hawley said something. And the second he did, then all these other senators jumped on board. But he was the very first. So if we pinpoint January 6th, if we pinpoint, all these lies, he is at the helm of it. And I don't mean to overplay his importance because I don't think he's important. But I also look at that and go, he is endemic of what is wrong with this party.
I just want to ask you very quickly because I want you to leave with a smile on your face. How do you like being a dad?
It's great. I don't get as much sleep, but it's awesome. I always thought, the baby stage would be tough, and I love the baby stage, so it's great.
Well, don't expect any sleep for another 2 or 3 years, but good luck. Congressman Adam Kinzinger, thank you for being with us this morning.